dude will tell you. Any major dude will tell you. Any major dude will tell you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lissy and Coleman. Love Steely Dan. And that really does fit with what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, not only Steely Dan, but that song. A few years back, was introduced to an amazing technique and that has been very profound in my life. And I want to talk a little bit about today. I kind of got inspiration a while back to talk about some of the things that have really helped me in terms of my well-being, my spiritual growth, and helping me along on the spiritual path. And so the first week I talked about a great technology called Holosync. And I also talked about heart math last week and how you can really tune into the energy and the power of the heart. And this week I want to talk about a technique and a tool that I came across when I was working at the world's largest software company and also doing ministry on the weekends. And I was burning the candle at about 5 ends at once and incredibly stressed out. It was pretty demanding work and just experiencing a lot of physical symptoms as a result of being completely stressed out. And was having some stomach issues, so I wound up going to my naturopath. And so my naturopath was a wonderful healer, and she gave me some wonderful herbs and things that really helped my stomach significantly. And before I left, she said, well, is there anything else that you would like some help with? And I said, well, it just so happens I've got this knot over here on my left shoulder. And it was a knot like the size of my fist. And it was just tightness and tension, and and I said, is there anything you can do about that? She said, well, you know, I've been learning this thing called EFT, or Emotional Freedom Technique. And, you know, we could try that and see what happens. And I said, well, okay, that sounds great. And so she said, well, I'm just going to show you how to do it, and you're actually going to tap. She explained a little bit about it. But emotional freedom technique is like a emotional, psychological form of acupuncture, but you don't use the needles. And I was glad to hear that, because I don't care much for needles. Although I've had acupuncture, and it's very effective as well. So she asked me, first of all, she said, well, is there something that's going on with you that is causing you to feel much more stressful? And I said, well, yeah. I had to explain a little bit about what was going on in terms of my work. And I was in a situation where let's just say that my boss at that time and I had different ways of looking at life. If you know what I mean. And I was feeling very stressed about that. And she said, well, if there was a particular emotion that you think might be contributing to this, what would that be? And I realized that I was pretty angry with him. But, you know, oftentimes it's not real safe to be angry with your boss. Have you guys noticed that? Or it didn't feel safe, at least to me at the time. And so she introduced me to the different points that you tap on. And we went through 2 rounds of this tapping, just tapping on the feelings and whatever was coming at that point. And she didn't actually even touch me. She showed me the points and had me do the tapping. And we did 2 rounds, and I kid you not, it felt like something actually physically fell out of my shoulder onto the floor. And I was like, oh my God, what did you do? You know, how did this, you know, what happened? And she said, well, it's this thing called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's something that you can learn, and you can teach it to the people in your church, in your congregation. And I went, that's it, I'm doing it. So I went home and, to tell you the truth, at first I was pretty skeptical about it, to be honest. How did just tapping on these different places on your body, how could that have such a profound effect and so quickly? And as I began to do some research on it, I realized that there's some pretty significant research that has been done, and there's been a lot more done since I even started it. So I thought, well, I'm going to check this out, and I'm going to learn about how to do it. And so I wound up signing up and becoming certified in this technique called emotional freedom technique. And I've actually upped my certification. I just recently got a certification in clinical emotional freedom technique. And the thing I want to share with you is some of the awarenesses about this. EFT has been researched in more than 10 countries by more than 60 investigators whose results have been published in more than 20 different peer-reviewed journals. And these include distinguished top-tier journals such as the Journal of Clinical Psychology, the APA journals Psychotherapy, Theory, Research, Practice, Training and Review of General Psychology, and the oldest psychiatric journal in North America, the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease. EFT research includes investigators affiliated with many different institutions. In the U.S., these range from Harvard Medical School to the University of California at Berkeley, City University of New York, Walter Reed Military Medical Center, A&M, Texas A&M University, JFK University, and institutions in other countries whose faculty have contributed to EFT as well, such as Staffordshire University in London, in United Kingdom, Lund University in Sweden, Ankara University in Turkey, and it goes on and on. So the wide variety of institutions and peer-reviewed journals, investigators, and settings that have an independent research found EFT to be, it's easier for me to say this, efficacious, isn't that a great word? Efficacious, means effective, are one indication of the breadth of existing research results. And results of all of the published studies that we've talked about here are statistically significant. And many of them are randomized controlled trials. It's a design generally regarded as the gold standard of research. So EFT has met the APA, which is the American Psychological Association standard, as efficacious treatment for phobias, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So they've been proven, had met the standards for being certified as an efficacious treatment for these 4 areas, but we're doing significant research in other areas of life. But one of the things that I'm convinced of, it's probably one of the best stress-relieving tools and techniques that you can do in a very short period of time. How many of you have actually done some EFT or tapping work, either with myself or others? How many of you had some really good results with it? Notice. Now, the thing I'll share with you is, oftentimes when you learn EFT, there are things that you can do to really help and just do them for yourself. And I love teaching people how to just do some of the basic EFT work, because it really can be one of the best tools you can have in your toolkit for being able to deal with the stresses of life. I say that, however, and recognize that there are times that you need some assistance with it, because there are things that are causing us sometimes illnesses, disease, discomfort, stress, that are not something that we are consciously aware of. And as I tell people, when something is going on in our subconscious mind, in our unconscious, we don't know what we don't know. And so sometimes you need someone who knows how to do this work to be able to reflect back to you and to be able to help do a little bit of investigative work to find out what is at the core of what's causing your emotional distress. And so that's one of the things that an EFT practitioner can help with. But there are many, many, many things that you can do with EFT that you can actually tap for yourself and can really have significant results with. And so that's why I like to share it with people, because it's something that you can actually take with you, and you can do things to really help you in terms of dealing with life stress situations and circumstances. Is there anybody here that would like to share, be open to sharing something that really helped them in terms of EFT and doing that EFT work? I know we had a lot of people that were. Jackie, would you like to share?
Yes. My family relationships, particularly my sister, yes, there was.
Yes.
My sister, that the years of, well, when I was 5, you did this to me, or whatever. And it's like, okay, that was 15 years ago. Got anything more recent? But what I would say is, with Tony's help, because I did do some private sessions with him, the EFT has helped me release literally 50 years of family issues around what you did in 1962, what you did in 1962, and has helped me to move forward. And I had a lot of anger issues that I did not realize were stemming from stuff that happened so long ago. But releasing that anger and realizing that I have control of me. I don't have control of everybody else. I have control of me. And I choose to be angry. And I chose, with EFT and Tony's help, to release all that anger. And so the cheerful, happy person you see today
Exactly.
is what the world is.
Yeah, and I can tell you there's you can see some beautiful transformation in Jackie, so thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful, yeah. So I'll tell you, a lot of times I've been able to use EFT to be able to clear whatever is going on in the moment when I feel stress. And the best time to really work with it is when you find yourself getting triggered by something, and to do it as quickly as possible. But there are times when it's not possible, and there are times when I have not been able to deal with whatever. So I actually go to someone else and let them help me do whatever I need to do for my own clearing as well. So there's a value in doing that. There's also a value in doing tapping, as we call it. That's another term that's used because that's what you're doing. You're basically tapping on different points. But there's a group energy, and there's a power in doing EFT in a group setting. And so in a minute, we're going to do a little bit of tapping, and I'm going to introduce those of you who are not familiar with it to the different points and how you can do that. But the thing I want to share with you about this is that I've worked with probably, several hundred people in getting my certifications and that sort of thing, and I've seen some pretty profound changes happen very quickly. And that's one of the things that we sometimes run up against when dealing with EFT, is that there are kind of awarenesses or belief systems or thought processes that sometimes stop us from doing this kind of work. This is one of the challenges in EFT is always faced, is that it violates common assumptions. And some of those assumptions are, it takes a long time to heal physical and emotional wounds. I'm going to suggest to you that's not true. Another assumption is that once emotional trauma is encoded in your brain, it's there forever. That's not true. Bad childhood experiences that affect your present life cannot be escaped. It's not true. Acupressure points on the body are just imaginary, not real physical places. That's also not true. They've been able to measure these different energies that flowing through the body and been able to map them. Other people and external events are causing all your stress.
I'd like to believe that.
It's all about them. I loved hearing the laughter on that one, I have to say. That is a sign of awareness. You can't see energy flowing in the body, so it doesn't exist. If it can't see it, can't touch it, can't taste it, can't, hit it with a hammer, it must not be real, right? Yeah, well, that's not true. So another one is whether or not you get certain diseases is programmed into your genes. That's also not true. One of the things that the work that's been done on epigenetics is an understanding that the genes are actually very malleable. And they are malleable based upon the environment and the energy that we are holding in our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. And so our thoughts create our emotions. But interestingly enough, our emotions also determine the kind of thoughts we hold. We talked about this a little bit last week when we talked about heart math. So it's important in terms of what we are drawing to us. How many of you here believe that there is such a thing as the law of attraction? There is a law of attraction at work in your life, whether you recognize it, whether you acknowledge it, whether you are in tune with it or not. You are actually drawing into your awareness experiences based upon what's going on in your, mostly, interestingly enough, not so much in your conscious mind, but what's going on in your subconscious mind. And as I said before, the subconscious mind is basically below the conscious, which means that you're not aware of it. Or it may be just slightly under the surface, and it might pop its head up every now and then. You kind of go, yeah, oh, and then it goes back down. It's like it disappears. And so we don't know what we don't know. We don't really understand what's going on in our subconscious mind most of the time. Until it just pops up every now and then. And it usually pops up as a trigger, and it usually pops up on the face of someone close to us. And someone at work. And so we wind up having these distressing kind of experiences, and we think that it's all about who?
Them.
But in reality, them are here, and they are here as guides to show us what we have in our subconscious mind. And if we are able and willing to use it in that way and recognize that whatever is showing up out here in the world is a reflection of what's going on in our subconscious mind, we can then do something with that so that we change what's going on in our subconscious mind, and we'll find that other things will begin to show up for us. And as we begin to transform what's going on underneath the conscious thinking patterns, we began to see that other things began to be created out of the thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and beliefs that we're holding on a subconscious level. And it's not necessary. Now, let me share with you that I don't disparage psychotherapy. I think there's a real value in psychotherapy, but it just takes a long time. And it's a very powerful tool. But it takes a long time to really get to what's going on for you in that way of working. And what we found is that EFT is like a laser experience of clearing whatever is going on in the subconscious mind. Now, one of the powerful things about this work also, in terms of our spiritual growth, one of the things that we've always taught in Unity is the tools of affirmations and denials. An affirmation is a positive statement of truth. And a denial is a statement of what is not true in our awareness, or what is not true in the real sense. And so you are letting go of, a denial is letting go of belief systems that are not in alignment with the principles of truth. And I'm absolutely convinced that EFT is one of the best tools for helping us to effectively use denials. Now, we're not talking about the kind of denial that says, you're standing on a railroad track and a train's coming down the track and you just say, there is no train, there is no train, there is no train. We're not talking about that unhealthy kind of denial. We're talking about an understanding that you can stand on the railroad track, see the train coming down the track, and say, that train has no power over me because I can step off the track. Does that make sense? And so we're not talking about an unhealthy denial of, I don't have a problem. We're talking about a denial of, I have a problem, but it has no power of holding me here. I have the power and the ability to step off the track. And EFT is a powerful tool because one of the things that we don't often know or understand or realize is that those, quote, problems are created from our memories. And this is one of the things that I learned really very significantly in the tool and technique of Ho'oponopono. I think I may actually extend this series and talk more about Ho'oponopono in one coming down the road. But Ho'oponopono is a way of understanding that whatever shows up in our experiences in life is there for the purpose of us to heal whatever it brings up inside of us. And so when something or someone shows up in your life that pushes your buttons, you know that saying, who's got the button? And part of our work is to let go of whatever that is triggering inside of us. And when we do that, we find that we attract to us different kinds of experiences. And so a part of the work of EFT is to get to an understanding where the body is so connected to our subconscious mind that if we begin to change some of the energy that's flowing even through the body, it actually changes us on a subconscious level. And studies have shown that it actually reduces the level of cortisol, which is the fight, flight, flee, yeah, that's freeze. Yes, there's another one, freeze. That's the chemicals that are released when you're afraid, and it actually reduces those. The other thing it does is it actually helps to stimulate new synapses in your brain so that when you have an experience and you go through an experience and you do tapping on that particular experience, it actually rewires the synapse of your brain so that you no longer have the same kind of triggered response of the same emotion, and it tells your amygdala, that's a big word, amygdala, which is that fight, flight, or flee center in the brain, that you're safe. And so, you have this experience when you're a child of, I've had people, I had an experience with a lady in my church years ago who was in one of my EFT classes, and she was 75 years old. She was given up for adoption, or actually was given up to her grandmother when she was 5. And she had been carrying this feeling of abandonment from the time she was 5, 70 years. And she said it has affected every relationship that she's been in because she has always been afraid of being abandoned. And she has been abandoned over and over and over again. And we did 15 minutes, maybe, of tapping with her in the group on the particular experience that she had around that. When she first started talking about it, she couldn't talk about it because she was so choked up still after 70 years of being left, seeing her mother and father walking away and leaving her with her grandmother. That she couldn't talk about it. She was so choked up. She was crying. She couldn't, even then, in that time, could hardly talk about it. And after 15 minutes of tapping, she was able to tell us the whole story in great detail, like she was going down to buy a gallon of milk at the grocery store. She remembered details that she hadn't remembered before. She not only remembered details she had not remembered before, but she had this totally different thoughts and feelings about our parents and had such compassion for them of having to give up their child. She had a totally different understanding and perspective of what was going on. And from that time on, she was in a relationship she passed on when she was 85. And she was in the same relationship for 10 years. after that. It was amazing to me to see how someone can make that kind of change of something that was so long-lasting in such a short period of time. So I'm convinced that this is actually probably one of the best things that has come around the world, in my opinion, to help us to be able to deal with stress, to deal with traumas, to deal with challenges. And so if you have anything, the other thing that I have gotten certified in is I have a great, I had an opportunity to get certified in using tapping for financial difficulties and challenges. And a number of folks in this room have experienced the positive aspects of that. And so how many of you ever heard things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or, money's the root of all evil, any of those kind of things? How many of you, if you had a friend who thought you were the root of all evil, would want to hang around that friend? We all have this kind of programming around things like money and finances, but we also, in terms of our physical body, we have thoughts and ideas and beliefs about our physical body that need to be released, that are not true. And so part of this work is to actually help us to reprogram some of the false beliefs that we have, and to be able to move into a different energy and awareness about that. So, how many of you like to do a little bit of tapping today? And we're going to move in. This is going to be kind of a tapping meditation. Is that clock right? Let me check my time here. Is that clock right? Yes, it is. Good. Okay. So this is going to be our kind of a tapping meditation. So just go ahead and get in a comfortable place. And what I'm going to invite you to do is I want you to think about a particular circumstance or situation that you've had in, it can be sometime within the last year. Now, don't pick the most traumatic experience that you've had in your life to do this exercise today. We'll save that for something a little more clear. But something, if you think about a particular experience that you've had, that when you think about it, you still feel upset about it, or it bothers you. It still bothers you. You still kind of have some energy around it, as they say. And in your thoughts, think about that, and I'm going to ask you to keep your eyes open for this for just a moment. And so you think about that experience, and if you were to give that experience a number from 0 to 10, 0 meaning no energy around it whatsoever, everything's, it's just a thought, just a memory. 10 meaning when you think about it, you get teary-eyed, or you feel tightness or stress or tightness in your breathing or someplace in your body. And so give that experience a number between 0, and you want to pick something that's at least probably about a 5. Sound good? And just notice if there's some place in your body when you think about that experience, where do you notice it? Is it someplace in the chest, in your breathing? Maybe it's in your neck, maybe it's in your back, maybe it's in the legs. Just notice where you might have seen or experienced that energy of that experience in your body. And give it a number. 0, nothing at all. 10, really intense. All right, everybody got that? Okay. Now, usually I like to have people write that down, but we're not bother to do that today. Just hold that number for yourselves. So I'm going to take my glasses off so I can do my tapping work here. So what I invite you to do is we're going to show you the tapping points. The first point that we're going to start with is on the side of the hand. And this is called a karate chop point. And there's the second one will be right here, right between your eyebrow and your nose. It's right at the corner of your eyebrow. And I usually like to use 2 fingers because you can just cover the point at that. And then the next one is the side of the eye, which is called the eye, side of the eye. Then the under the eye, which is called under the eye. Good names. The next one would be under the nose, just right under your nose. And the next one is in the cleft of your chin. That's that little crease there in your chin. And then the next one actually is you take 2 fingers and put it in the V of your neck. And then you go down about an inch and then go to either the right or left. And there's a little knot there you can usually feel. It's right under, below that knot of the collarbone. And that's called the collarbone point. So we'll tap in that area. And then the next one actually is under your arm. And so the best way to find that is take 4 fingers and put it under your arm. And about where your little finger is, that's where you want to tap. And sometimes I like to tap on top of the head as well. That's just another additional point, and that's not always used, but sometimes I like to work with that one as well. So we'll start with there, and then we're going to start by repeating, just repeat back whatever you hear me say. And then you're going to fill in the blank. And you can say it out loud if you choose to. You don't have to. Just think of it. That's the powerful thing about this is there's so many different ways. You can use a right hand, you can use your left hand, you can use both hands. And interestingly enough, we won't go into this right now, but you can actually just do it in your imagination. And it's almost as powerful. But it's a little more powerful to go ahead and do the tapping. So even though I had this blank experience, I deeply and profoundly accept myself. So actually, I'm going to pause here a second. So what I'm going to invite you to do is take that experience, and we're going to make it a little more valuable for you. Take that experience that you thought of, that still you feel kind of triggered about, and imagine that it's like a 1 or 2 minute movie. See if you can condense it down in your mind. Sound good? And then give that movie a 1 or 2 word title. 1 or 2 words. And then when we say fill in the blank, use those 1 or 2 words. Sound good? All right. Even though I had this blank experience, I deeply and profoundly accept myself. Even though I had this blank experience, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I had this blank experience, I deeply and completely accept myself. And we'll start at the eyebrow up here and just say this blank experience. All right, this side of the eye. This blank experience. Under the eye. This blank experience. Under the nose. This blank experience. Cleft of the chin. This blank experience. And then the collarbone. This blank experience. Under the arm, this blank experience. Top of the head, this blank experience. Then take a nice deep breath. One more nice deep breath. One more nice deep breath. Now, if you were to visually, were to reimagine this experience vividly, on a scale of 0 to 10, how intense would that be for you now? How many of you went down? Just look around. And so would someone be willing to say what the number was before and then what it is now? Yes?
8 to a 4.
8 to a 4. Anybody else? 7, 5. 10 to a 7? 6 to a 4. Great. All right. Anybody that the intensity went up for them? Yep. So my suspicion is that the intensity probably has gone down. If your intensity tends to go up, that's because you switched images. And you found a different image in that story that had a more charge around it. Does that make sense? So let's do just a little bit more with that same one, shall we? Even though I still have, notice how I'm saying this, still have some of this blank experience.
Some of this lifetime experience.
I deeply and profoundly
I deeply and profoundly
am willing to accept myself.
am willing to accept myself.
Even though
Even though
I still have some of this blank experience,
I still have some of this put down experience.
I deeply and completely
I deeply and completely
love and accept myself.
love and accept myself.
Or at least I'm willing to.
Or at least I'm willing to.
Even though
Even though
I still have some of this experience,
I still have some of this put down experience.
I deeply and completely
I deeply and completely
am willing to love and accept myself.
am willing to love and accept myself.
This blank experience. The rest of this blank experience.
The rest of this put down experience.
All the remainder of this blank experience.
All the remainder of this put down experience.
All the rest of this blank experience.
All the rest of this put down experience.
Everything left of this experience.
Everything left of this put down experience.
All that remains of this experience.
All that remains of this put down experience.
Under the arm. All that's left of this experience.
All that's left of this put down experience.
And then top of the head. All that remains of this experience.
All that remains of this put down experience.
All right, take a nice deep breath. One more time. Nice deep breath. So how many of you are feeling a little more relaxed? Oh, look around. So what we find is generally the first time 70% of the people will have a reduction in the stress around that particular experience. So if you were to give that experience again, just imagine it vividly in your mind again, and on a scale of 0 to 10, how intense do you think it would be now? Give it a number. Yeah. Yeah, 10, 7, 4. Good. 1. Good. So the idea, if you get it down to 0, what we have seen is that once you get it down to 0, or even really close to a 0, sometimes even down to a 1, it goes away. And you don't have that same charge anymore around that particular experience. So that's kind of the work of EFT. And you can do this, and I actually have a handout for you to remind you how to do it. So this week, your homework is when something comes up, would you help pass these out? Would you help pass these out? Something comes up that triggers you, that feels bothersome, is to actually do some of this tapping work so that you can release the stress around it. And if you do have something that comes up that you're not able to deal with, and you can actually set an appointment with me if you want to. Go onto the website and find the minister tab, whatever, and at the bottom of that page, it'll say a little bit about me. At the bottom of the page, there should be a pop-up that allow you to set a schedule a time with me, and so we can take some time to really do some of this work together. Sound good?
Yes.
And we're going to have one more song, and then we're going to close.